Okay, highlights from the June revenue report. It's good to let the report settle in a bit before discussing it, but it seems pretty stable now. People are talking about Wuthering Waves winning this month. Being on top of the revenue report once is a fluke. Averages are more important. And Genshin, over the last 10 months or so, has made more than Zenless and Wuthering combined on mobile. Nonetheless, Wuthering Waves has been winning in revenue since its launch, and the great news is that Zenless Zone Zero is right there with it. That's great news because it means great things for players of all of these games, especially any that want better monetization in these games. Important to note, players do not or should not care about total revenue. They can't feel it. It has nothing to do with them. Players directly feel the monetization, the pressure the game applies to turn the player into revenue. The success of this pressure shows up in the revenue per player. This is the most important metric and information that's found in the revenue report, because the system that leads to the highest spending on average will dominate the entire industry, regardless of its spot on the report. Total revenue, the value on the report, is the product of two factors: monetization, or revenue per player, and audience size. If either of those are exceedingly high, that game will likely be near the top of the report. The ideal situation for players is that the system that has the least of this pressure, more free-to-play friendly, actually results in the highest player spending. That means that players spending because of perceived value, not predatory pressure. So we need to know which game makes people spend the most and which systems are the most successful at doing that. To find that information from the report, we need audience data. The data used is from active player, but the resulting values match the conclusions that AppMagic finds, such as Genshin Impact having a monetization efficiency, or spending per player, of roughly $2.09 per active user, which is actually a little lower than the value in our analysis, which is good, because I chose estimates that were favorable to Genshin, since I'm trying to make a point about how well Zenless is doing. Which brings us to the first and most important reason that Zenless is actually Hoyo's golden child: most efficient monetization of the Hoyo Trinity. The revenue per player is much higher in Zenless than Genshin or HSR, meaning simply it's worth more to Hoyo to add a Zenless player than to add a player of any other game. This is pretty consistent with the treatment of the Zenless audience in comparison to the other games, and would be true even if Zenless made less overall revenue. Yet we have enough data to compare Zenless overall revenue to Genshin, and the results are surprising. Available metrics suggest that Genshin is 1.5 to 2 times larger than Zenless. But to favor Genshin and make the point, we'll assume Genshin's total audience is actually 3 to 1. Wuthering is also assumed to be about a 1 to 3 ratio to Genshin. Here's the analysis results on the screen. So, Zenless wins big when accounting for its best platforms. Even at a 3 to 1 disadvantage, Zenless still makes more overall revenue because it's drastically improved monetization. It's easy to miss this if you only look at one platform, especially the objectively worst platform for the game, and then you try to draw conclusions from that. The revenue report makes it easy to misjudge Zenless Zone Zero in comparison to its big brothers, Genshin and HSR, because of comparing their strength against Zenless's weakness. While Genshin Impact's all-platform audience is roughly 1.5 to 2 times the size of Zenless's audience, already a massive difference, the mobile audience is more than 10 times the size. This is why Zenless often seems like a flop, because the mobile report is comparing 65% or more of Genshin and HSR's revenue, 100% of Love and Deep Space's revenue, against only 17 to 20% of Zenless or Wuthering's. Assuming that Genshin does better than Zenless just because of mobile revenue is like assuming a waiter makes more than a manager just because they make more in tips. They might, but you should at least peek at the salary first. So why should players care anyway? Because ultimately, Zenless and Wuthering are proving players right about the best way for companies to actually maximize revenue. The common narrative assumes that predatory tactics like 50/50s and stinginess are the best way to make players spend more. Any game being more generous or free-to-play friendly will lose money. Zenless and Wuthering have broken that assumption for 2 years straight. They are at a minimum slightly less demanding and expensive and slightly more generous in comparison to Genshin. And yet, player spending seems to increase drastically as games become even slightly less oppressive and risky, like in the trend of moving from Genshin to Zenless to Wuthering. And as Genshin players, along with the rest of the gacha audience, struggle to see more improvements in this direction from all of these games, it's important to know when and why the data and evidence is on our side. The industry on the whole changed drastically after the arrival of these two games, including Genshin itself, adopting many elements from its kid brother and nearest rival. Rarely are these patterns a surprise. Just follow the money. Just don't ignore most of the money when trying to follow it. Absolutely fantastic news for all gacha players, as no matter the audience size of your game, the lesson of how effectively to get money out of players will be copied. It's important we as players don't miss that lesson as we try to make sure the industry learns it. If you'd like to see a much deeper analysis and explanations, let me know in the comments below. Just a warning, I have no clue how to not make it boring. It was hard enough to shorten it to this. The detailed explanations take 20 to 40 minutes, and I even fell asleep listening to it while trying to edit it, so it did not seem a good way to get the important parts out. But if it's requested, maybe I'll do short videos about each individual aspect. Also, let me know if you'd like to see this report each month. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.